would like to welcome you warmly on behalf of the UVEMA, the Observatoire for Cycling and Active Mobilities at the University of Lausanne. And I would like to welcome you on behalf of my colleagues and notably Bengt Kayser, the co-director of the UVEMA. So this semester, we have dedicated our seminar series to cycling cultures. We wanted to have some presentations on the practice of cycling, but outside the usual suspects, like outside the cities that we know or the countries that we know quite a lot. And we wanted to discover other contexts with which we or you may be less familiar with, but contexts from which we can learn a lot. So this semester we'll have 3 presentations. In November, we'll have a talk on cycling in Japan, where the practice of cycling is highly gendered. In October, we'll hear from Tunisia, where there is also a return or a renaissance of cycling, but which is led by NGOs, associations. And today, we are heading north to Oulu in Finland. You may have heard of the name of Oulu, or you may have crossed pictures of people in Oulu cycling in numbers in winter, or schoolyards full of bikes in the middle of winter. And in Switzerland, but I guess in the same in the neighboring countries, we very often hear that winter, low temperature, darkness, snow prevent year-round practice of cycling. And well, it's not the case everywhere. So we are very eager to know more about the way people in Oulu cope with Arctic climate. Is it their DNA, or is it something else? We know a little bit the answer already, but we want to know more about that. So it's a great pleasure for us to welcome Timo Perälä. He's an expert in cycling based in Oulu. He is also very much involved in the Winter Cycling Federation, which is an NGO that aims to make year-round cycling possible for everyone. So before giving him the floor, I would like to ask you to mute off your microphone, and please free to use the chat for your questions and comments. We'll have the discussion after the presentation. So I would like to thank Timo Perälä for being with us today, and we are looking forward to hearing more from Oulu. So is there a specific Finnish DNA, or is it something else?
Thank you, Patrick. Good afternoon, everyone. Nice to meet you. And yes, it's in the DNA. We are crazy. So it's a specific race of human beings living up there. That's about it. Well, maybe that's not the truth. And I will talk more about Oulu as I managed to share the screen with you. I hope you can see the presentation, as it should kick in now.
We can't, yes, that's fine. We can see it now. Yes.
Here we go. So first of all, thank you for inviting me for this webinar. It's really always a pleasure to talk about year-round active mobility, which is the aim that we like to reach at some point, like globally, like people would be active all over the world, nevertheless of the weather or winter conditions. So I will talk about the city of Oulu mostly, because maybe you heard that it's regarded as the winter cycling capital of the world. And there's good grounds for that claim as well. So what I'm going to do during the presentation is that I'm going to tell you stories. These 3 stories, they are combined. My story, the story of the Winter Cycling Federation, and the story of Oulu as a cycling city, they all are related. And at the end, I will try to sum up and give some tips or takeaways for other cities as well, what we think are important things to remember after the presentation. So first, shortly about myself. I do mostly work in as a consultant in urban planning, trying to make cities, municipalities, even countries more active and more sustainable. That's one part of me. The other part is in sport and in well-being, technology and testing. And I do that quite a bit as well. And what I try to do is trying to combine these two elements. What I found from the sport and well-being testing, and I try to use that information, trying to change how we plan our urban build-up environments. So basically, what I'm trying to achieve through my work is to have healthier, happier, and therefore more successful citizens and athletes as well. Because we all know that when we are doing well, then we can give back for the society as well. Then we can give back for the nature as well. So I try to use that angle, that personal angle, to change behavior of people in urban environments. Because, well, this is one of my favorite topics, and I try to not to go to details in it, but how we see when we test people and even top-level athletes is that we have a certain picture in our heads about sports and well-being and physical activity in general. And it is that we have to train or have a hobby or something, and then it counts, but that's completely wrong. We are trying to compensate our passive lifestyles by training hard 1 hour or even a bit more, but we are lacking that basic endurance. So we are trying to build something without a foundation, and it just doesn't work in health perspective or in recovery performance perspective. And that's a really big problem in our societies nowadays, that we are doing sports, but we are not active during our everyday lives. A few words about my history. I'm an Oulu boy. Well, I've been living elsewhere as well, but I did my schools in Oulu. Eventually graduated as a civil engineer from the University of Oulu. And at that time, I was working already as a consultant, and I was lucky enough that my uncle proposed me a topic for my thesis, and I said, yeah, why not? Sounds interesting. At the time, I didn't realize that it would be a completely kind of game changer for myself. I was studying the winter maintenance level of cycling and pedestrian routes in different cities in Finland. And it came as a surprise for me that Oulu stood out. Like all the other cities in Finland sucked, basically, in winter maintenance. And so I started to wonder, like, is this like a common thing, how things are taken care of? Because I was used to go by my bike as a kid everywhere by myself throughout the year, and it was no big deal. And it's still like that in Oulu, that we think that it's something normal. And it turned out that it's something not normal. It's really extraordinary, basically. And so after the thesis, I got some funding to do national winter cycling study in Finland, and I wanted more data. At the time I was doing that, there was really little data about cycling and year-round cycling specifically. So through these two research and studies, I was invited to several places around the globe, like, come to talk about the winter cycling miracle of Oulu. I said, fair enough. I did quite a bit of traveling. And at some point, I think it was 2010, I was in Ottawa talking for the people in the city officials in Ottawa about winter cycling, and I kind of got frustrated because they were so far away where we are. And it came to my mind that I need to organize something that people could come to Oulu and see it by themselves and experience what a real year-round active mobility winter city is like. So as I was starting 2012 as a cycling and walking coordinator for the city of Oulu, as a consultant, and the first idea I was trying to sell to the city is to organize a winter cycling congress or a velocity congress in Oulu in winter. But the city official people were like, oh, well, who would come? Like, it's not big deal, come on. So I got frustrated. I organized it by myself through my company together with my colleagues. Pekka Tahkola was a big help for that. And I was using a lot of my friends and people from the soccer club and etc. And it turned out to be a big success. 150 people came from 12 different countries. And during the Congress, I kind of realized like, okay, this is something big. And we are onto something because people were like, there were people coming from far away places. Like I think the furthest one was Tom Babin, who came from Calgary. He was a journalist from Calgary Herald magazine. And afterwards, he wrote a book about winter cycling, and our Winter Cycling Congress has a chapter in the book. So I realized that we're onto something, but I was completely tired after the organizing a big seminar. And I said that I'm not going to do it ever again, because it took a lot of my time, and it was kind of a volunteer work, so I wasn't able to carry on. But after the final discussion, this guy came over to me. This is Anders Swanson from Winnipeg, Canada, and said, dude, let's take this to Winnipeg. And I said, well, it sounds like a plan if I don't have to do anything about it. And he said that, agreed. So, and the rest is history. In Winnipeg, it was an amazing, epic journey. And I met some people got together and we started talking that maybe we should get organized, and that's what we did. And ever since, we've been trying to intoxicate people with Finnish salty liquids all over the world. We've been to different cities. Every year there's a Winter Cycling Congress. And the last one before the pandemic was in Joensuu in Finland, 2020. And now we can get back to the real events again in 2023 in Karlstad, Sweden. That will be in next February. But it showed that this winter thing, it's pretty common. It does surprise us every year. Oh, there's this white stuff coming from the sky. And now we can stop being active. We can go indoors and go by car to everywhere. But it's pretty common, and there's different kinds of winters everywhere. So there's no kind of a one class fits all solution, because every city has its own history, own structure, own infrastructure, and the climate, the winter is different. So, but it's really good to share these knowledges and experiences and best practices, because that is how we learn. And in our conferences, it's the chilliest conference out there. It's always a lot of fun. We always try to maximize the time that people spend together doing stuff, and less lectures and presentations. Nothing bad with them, but it's always good to engage people to do things together. So the next one is in Karlstad in February 2023. The registration is open, so you can go and find it online. I will give the address at the end of the presentation. So as we got organized, we are actually now, we have a board for the Finnish Cycling Federation, and I'm running that board, and we meet online, sometimes in person. During the pandemic, there was some people from Canada got stuck to Finland after a Joensuu conference, and we had some social distancing meeting on the ice of the Baltic Sea. But what we're trying to achieve with Winter Cycling Federation is that we are trying to normalize year-round cycling and winter cycling. It's not dangerous. It's normal and can be practical if you just have the basic means to do that. So you can become a member as well. There's different price for yearly membership. So you can go and check it out if you feel this is something you could be part of. This all takes us back to Oulu, which is my city. We are located up north, 650 kilometers up north from our capital, Helsinki. And we are only 200 kilometers away from the Arctic Circle. So it can get pretty Arctic occasionally, but we are also feeling the impacts of climate change. Our winters are getting crazy and different than they used to be. But still, we have a decent winter. A lot of outdoor skating areas. The ice on the sea is frozen. The river is frozen, and normally there's a lot of snow around. The city itself, we have about 200,000 inhabitants, so it's well, mid-sized city in Finland. Not the biggest one, neither the smallest one. And let's get to the facts and figures about Oulu and how come you can say that Oulu is the winter cycling capital of the world. Well, first thing you have to know about Oulu, that it's not some medieval European city which is densely populated. It's more of a normal, typical American city, kind of a shotgun city where people are spread out. There's a lot of urban sprawl in Oulu, and the distances between different, like the north in Haukipudasta, it's 20 kilometers up to there, and in south, Oulunsalo is 10 kilometers away from the city center. So there's a lot of sprawl. And nevertheless, cycling in Oulu is pretty big. There's a lot of facilities to do that, and the share of cycling trip is pretty high compared to our urban sprawl. So you might ask that, okay, that's summertime, but what about the winter time? And there's a lot of potential in Oulu still to get more people on bikes for the winter as well. But there's a decent population of citizens who cycle throughout the year. And it's almost a third of the population who do that like on a regular basis. So that's a big number of people who go out there almost every morning. They go to work by bike, they go to the hobbies, they go to shopping by bike. And it's not just the hardcore people who are doing that. Normally the image of winter cyclists is something like this. When I talk about winter cycling for people who doesn't know anything about it, it's like, okay, it's, yeah, dude, you have to have the gear and the fat bike, and yeah, it must be fun, but well, no, it's not for me. But this is not the case in Oulu. This is more like it. It's a perfectly normal way of transportation to get around from A to B. And you don't need any specific gear. These ladies, for example, are probably having the same bike. They might have a studded tire in front, maybe in the back as well, but they are just wearing the normal clothes that they would wear anyway when they go outside during the winter. So this is pretty much the thing in Oulu that is for all age and gender. It's a normal thing to do. Of course, when people are getting more age, they become more careful, and there's less and less cyclists. But there's a fair amount of people, like elderly people, who do bike throughout the year. Some main Oulu cycling network facts. This is which is pretty unique globally in Oulu, that when we started doing our cycling network, the main idea was that the main routes go kind of inside the city structure. They are not right next to the bigger roads. So they have their own geometry. And of course, the system at the time we started doing this mixed system, as it was done in Sweden, where you don't separate the cyclists and pedestrians. And main part of our network is like that. We are doing with the main connections, we are now doing the separation between cyclists and pedestrians. Like in this picture. But altogether, we have about 930 kilometers. Nobody knows exactly how much we have in city of Oulu area alone. And then you can add on to that, if you go outside of Oulu, the other municipalities in Oulu region, there's a 1,500 or 600 kilometers of the combined total network. So basically it means that all places are accessible by bike all times. And it's safe as well. We try to make a system that is for all ages and gender. So basically you can put your kids to go to the school in dead winter as well. And all the major crossings are in levels. There are underpasses for cyclists and pedestrians. So you don't have to interfere with the automobile traffic. And right from the beginning, the main idea was that if you build something in such Arctic conditions, you have to keep it in function year round. There's no point building something that you don't use for 6 months. So almost all of the 930 kilometer network is maintained and mostly prioritized over driveways. And one key factor for Oulu success is as well that you have to plan your infrastructure to be winterproof. There has to be space for the snow. That's why most of the cycling and pedestrian connections are separated from the motor vehicle lanes, because there has to be place for the snow. I was trying to get a one map of Oulu region cycling network, but it's not quite possible. This picture, it's on our traffic platform, oulunliikenne.fi, and you can go and check the network there, but it's not all here. It's only the main routes and regional routes which are presented here. The connections within the suburbs are not presented here. But this service provides real-time data about maintenance. For example, you can see the snow plows on the map when they are doing the operations, and you can check when the connection is being maintained or if it's not maintained. So we are spending now quite a bit of money to invest on our so-called BANA network, which is kind of super cycling highway network. It should be 75 kilometers in 2030. And we have some 20 kilometers of it now. And it's every year we are building more and more. And we have invested quite a bit on branding and wayfinding, like signaling. And also the focus is very much on making it regional. So people with the e-bikes, you can bike longer distances to work as well. And that's happening as we speak. So there is some really nice things like treats and add-ons that we do, but this all tells about it that we take cycling as a serious form of transportation. This might be kind of are they like that important, but doing this is telling the message for the people that we are dead serious about it. And it's a serious mode of transportation that needs to be planned. And if we want to change the modal share more towards active transportation, this is something we simply have to do. You might have seen the pictures about these Oulu innovations. For example, these projected traffic signs on the ground. They are they look fun and they are fun, and it's really telling for all the people who are living in the city that the city is investing into cycling, year-round cycling. We are also making a mountain bike network, and that's going to be hopefully ready by 2030 as well. And this is the picture of the plan, and we are planning to have 450 kilometers of mountain bike trails within the city. Some of them are a bit out of the city, but the idea is that almost everybody in Oulu region can go for mountain bike tours from their own door. But one major thing why Oulu has been successful, of course, it's infrastructure. But once you have the infrastructure, it's all about the maintenance. And with the maintenance, we've been working quite a bit. And as I said, that the climate change has affected our winters as well. Previously, we had like long, steady winters. The winter came in end of October, and it stayed on -degrees and all the way until April. But now it can be a different story. In February, we can have suddenly +5 degrees. And of course, the maintenance people at the time were like, they didn't react to that because it was something new. And the people on bikes, they noticed that this is not working no more. We have to do something. And as a city, we started to think different means how to make it better for the cyclists, because there's a lot of cyclists in Oulu. So we created a separate contract for the main cycling network in Oulu region. And we had a first contract period for 3 years, and it quite didn't work out because this old-fashioned way of doing things was still there in the contractor's mind, and we weren't able to change that with our tendering documents and with our supervision. So we needed to improve it, and that's what we did. And the second time asking, it's been just beautiful. Now we have a separate, we call it Superclass maintenance network, and it covers 175 kilometers of the most important cycling connections in Oulu. And the contractor has to really dedicate themselves to this contract. And they have to, for example, serve hot chocolate for the people a few times a year along the routes. They have to bike on the very paths that they maintain. And it's become for them clear that they are doing a customer service. They are not doing this for the city, they are doing service for the people, for the citizens. And we are extremely happy with the current contractor. So happy that the people, for example, they gave cakes for the contractor and visited their facilities. And that tells you something how satisfied people are in Oulu at the moment for winter maintenance level. There's a whole different course we did, how the best became even better. I will give the link for that video as well at the end of the presentation. Maybe you've seen it. If you haven't seen it, I really recommend that you have a look. And this is how it is nowadays. It's 24/7 good level of maintenance, so people can go even during the night. If they have a night shift, they can go to work and they can rely that this network is always in perfect condition. And people are always asking, well, this has to be really expensive for your city, that how can you afford such a high service level for cyclists? And we've done the math. It's not actually that much of money, like yearly that we put, but it's still some money. But the additional price tag is 180,000 euros per year. And if we don't do that, we lose even more money. And we done calculation for the city, for the decision makers, and to open up how come there's additional costs if we don't provide good service level. We have data that, okay, if the maintenance did not work, there's less and less people cycling during the winter. And there's more people who take their cars. There's more traffic jams, there's more driving, there's cost and emissions, and there's a loss of benefits of active mobility. So, and we did the calculation and the math and was presenting these results for the decision makers and said that this investment is a good investment. And we had some other facts as well from our former campaigns. This is the Winter Cyclist campaign that we were running together with Pekka Tahkola for 4 or 5 years in the city of Oulu. The aim was to have seasonal summer cyclists to become year-round cyclists by providing them some extra things and encouragement, first of all. And the results were like the people who participated, they had some fears about the winter and cycling in the winter. But as a result of these campaigns, they found out that, okay, it's not such a big deal. And actually, they felt a lot better. And they stick to winter cycling or year-round cycling ever since. So it was a really successful campaigns, and we were doing the math about this as well and showing that to the decision makers that people are feeling better if they do year-round active mobility. You might ask, is it safe in Oulu to cycle? It's pretty safe. Our system is pretty safe with all these underpasses in major junctions, but still, of course, there's injuries and even deaths that occur occasionally, and we are trying to lower those numbers. And in fact, it's not the winter that is the most dangerous season for cyclists. It's around this time when the darkness is coming and there's no snow. The snow reflects light, so it makes everything nicer, and people are more visible during the winter as well. And of course, people are driving with less speed, and maybe they're a bit more well prepared. And actually, one of the most dangerous cycling months is June in Oulu. And I don't know, maybe the Finns are, after long winter, they go crazy and they go drinking and biking. So it might be an explanation behind that. Then all this just didn't happen in Oulu like magically. So there's a story behind the success as well. There's a lot of work and there's a history behind it all. And our history starts from 1960s. Like everywhere in Europe, it was a strong era for automobilization, and cars were popping up everywhere. And in Oulu, the city made a plan, a car traffic plan in 1969. And the result was really frightening for the decision makers and the city officials. And they said that we can't afford doing something like this. We have to find other solutions. And as a result of that, there was a political will that we have to put the cyclists somewhere, because at the time there was a lot of cyclists in cities in Europe. And there was a political will, and they gave the mandate for this guy, Mauri Myllylä, and they gave him funding as well and make a plan for they called light traffic that at the time, cycling and pedestrians. And Mauri was a visionary, and he did really good job with the traffic bicycle traffic network, and he was really dedicated to that. There was some strong opposition as well, but he was the forerunner for Oulu cycling network. Then when Mauri retired in 1998, there was maybe 10 years of time that nothing really happened in Oulu, and things didn't go any further. That was the time I was trying to get the city of Oulu to do things, and I was another maybe kind of a forerunner. And now we are lucky to have Harri Faarala as a traffic engineer, and my colleague Pekka Tahkola, who are working on making things, and all these streets I showed you earlier on, thanks to Harri and Pekka. They are really great guys and doing a really sterling job promoting cycling and making a cycling year-round activity for more people. So basically what Mauri did, this picture shows you the streets in Oulu. And Mauri's idea was to have these cycling connections straight to the destinations. So it's pretty much the same idea that you see in, for example, in Houten, that with car you have to go around, by bike you start going to the right direction to begin with. So, and that's a really big thing, like mentally, when you make a decision whether I should take the car or go by bike. And this is, I think this is a really unique system. It's like consistent throughout the city. We have the green corridors. We are using the water elements, and it's like riding in a park all the way almost to the city center. You feel like you're biking in nature. There's no cars nearby. Obviously, there are some connections where there's traffic nearby, but most of the main connections are really pleasant to bike on. It can get really beautiful in wintertime as well. This is right from the city center with the illumination and with the frost. It's just great stuff. And it's like, it's a complete mental and physical pleasure that you are experiencing even during the wintertime when you go to work. So from my perspective, this is like one of the greatest things in Oulu, that everybody can basically go by bike year round, and it's made for them. So what Mauri created already there in the 70s and in early 80s was a kind of a system that we don't have to fight for cycling connections when we build a new residential area, for example. So it kind of comes automatically. And when there's a new residential area, there's a high quality cycling and pedestrian network to kind of build in to the system. So we don't need a separate funding for this, is all there. And our opinion is that many times we get to hear that build it and people will come and start using bikes. But our message is always to go beyond that as well. Like, it's not just doing the infrastructure, it has to be the service as well. Serve them the best possible way, because it's highly beneficial for the society, for the health, and for the whole whole city. So I give you an example. Maybe you've seen these pictures from Metsokangas School, which is one of the suburban areas, residential areas in Oulu, near Oulu downtown, maybe 8 kilometers away from the city center. And this shows how this Mauri's idea of straight connection for bikes works. There's Metsokangas School where the marker is, and these green lines are cycling and pedestrian connections. So the kids, when they go to school, they want to go there by bike or by foot, because it's the easiest and the most simplest and the best way for them. They don't want to be transported by their lame parents, because they are kind of, they want to be independent as well. And they are having fun with the friends when they go to school. And this system really works well, because there's a school with 1,200 pupils, and 1,000 of them come by bike year round. So this is all about the priority, also about the mental priority that we have created here in Oulu. So basically, to sum up and to give some tips, and in Oulu case, there was this need to do something, and I think we did a good job, or Mauri did at his time. He was the pioneer, but there was behind that, there was a political acceptance that something needed to be done. And this same political acceptance is rising up everywhere in the world, as we're talking about cutting down the emissions and fighting the climate change. The need is there. And after that, we need the right people. We don't need just any people, but we need pioneers and forerunners to fight the fight, because there's a lot of conflicts of interest. There's a lot of fighting involved and compromises that you have to do to make the swift in our transport systems. And what I urge all the planners in the worldwide to do is just to make cycling easy, convenient, and fast. Give that mental priority for the weaker ones, as cyclists and pedestrians are compared to the cars. So cycling has to be a real choice, and also it has to be a real choice year round. Lame excuses like winter or weather or hills or whatever, you can make solutions about those. And what you have to also do is show the money, because people are feeling worse and worse all over the world, mentally and also physically. So there's a big bucks involved in that, and we have to make a swift towards active lives, like in cities and in built-up areas in general. So these are basically the tips I would like to suggest for all planners or decision makers who are involved in active mobility or in transportation planning in general. So to answer the question, Yeah, I was lying. It's not in the DNA. It's all about how you make it easy, convenient, and fast, and you do it year round. It has to be the priority. Otherwise, just giving thumbs up for cycling and year-round cycling and saying, "Oh man, you're crazy" when you're doing it, it's not gonna work. So you have to be consistent and keep priority for cycling and year-round cycling. And when you plan stuff, you have to keep winter and weather conditions in mind, because there will be more like extreme weather conditions, and our infrastructures should be planned for that as well. So, and finally, if you do something, do it well and invest in high service level for cyclists, because it's really, really a good investment. As I many times say to like decision makers, like investing in year-round cycling is the most effective act of preventive healthcare. And this is what we all need, like globally in every city. And this is just something that we have to do. So that's basically wraps up my presentation. There's some interesting links. I will put them later to the link, but there is this video of Oulu region super maintenance contract. You can find it from Vimeo and YouTube. And this one is really great one. This is not just bikes video. It's about teasing Canadians why they are just giant wimps, that they are not cycling in winter, but Finns are cycling in winter. There's a lot of good information in that as well. We helped Jason to do that video with Pekka. And then there is even one in French that you can watch from Le Parisien. It's about, well, it's about the same topic, but it's the viewpoint is a lot from the kids' perspective. It's a really nice video and well done as well. So I recommend you go and check that one out as well. It can be found from the Le Parisien website. So there's events coming up. I think it's kind of a short notice. There's a Vélo Finland. It's the biggest cycling conference, and it's going to happen next week in Oulu. If you have free time, pop over. You still can sign on, I think. But if you can make it, I hope to see all of you in Karlstad in next February with the coolest cycling congress ever. It's going to be a lot of fun. So I hope to see all of you there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Timo. That was really, really interesting.